Hello Stargazers, Bryan Colter here, Evolutionary Astrologer for your horoscope video for the upcoming Cancer full moon that happens on December 29th. This is a very powerful full moon because it's happening right at the end of the year, a very important year as we've seen. Also, it's in its own sign. Moon rules Cancer. And as I've said in many of my videos, whenever a planet's in its own sign, it is on steroids. So supercharged full moon. And Cancer itself is an inward, reflective, emotional. It's on the water. It's a water sign, so it's on the emotional, subjective plane. So there's always, with any of the water signs, especially Cancer, though, there's an inwardness. Okay, it's time to go within, and reflection is the word I want to work with at first here. You know, Cancer is a very reflective sign. Here we have the full moon, reflecting the light of the sun. So it's a good time to just reflect on this year as a whole. And we want to take a look at, it's like, gosh, 2020 has been major, as you've seen. You don't need to know astrology to recognize 2020 was a major year. Astrologically speaking, there's reasons for that. It's because we have, life is very cyclical, okay? And we have all these gears in the clock of life, and they're all clicking together, click, click, click. And sometimes they have major clicks, very rare clicks that come together amidst this symphony of the spheres. And we had the Saturn-Pluto conjunction happen right at the beginning of the year. And then we had the Saturn-Jupiter-Pluto conjunction, okay, that happened through middle to the late of the year. Then we had the Jupiter-Pluto conjunctions. And then we have what we're experiencing now, which is the Saturn-Jupiter conjunction. And all these are pretty rare events. And if you'll notice, it's like repeat all that back to me. I know it's a lot, but even if the family dog heard me, would have heard Saturn, 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 which is kind of the point. The year of Saturn, not only because it was involved in 3 of those 4 events, but also a primary focalizer for 2020 has been the sign of Capricorn. And what I just said about the moon in Cancer, it's supercharged. Saturn rules Capricorn. So it's been a supercharged Saturn because it's in its own sign. And all those events I just rattled off, click, 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 coming together. Really, these events happen pretty rarely, multiple decades of time before we see them again, which is of significance to have multiple decade events all clicking together in the same year. Very rare. Okay, but we add to that this very significant ingredient of Capricorn, and we recognize that the last time Saturn-Pluto came together in the sign of Capricorn, Saturn's own home turf, was back in 1518. Okay, so about 500 years. And then we take this Jupiter-Saturn conjunction, which we're experiencing right now and will continue to be until, about January to February of 2021. That event happens once every 20 years, 2 decades. But this is what I talked about in my last video extensively. This Jupiter-Saturn, what they do is they come together in a certain element, air, water, earth, or fire, and they stay in that element for a 200-year cycle. So now we're firmly in the air family of signs for the next 200 years, starting a new 200-year cycle, which we haven't been in this air family with these 2 planets for 800 years. So 500 years, 800 years. And then we take this very rare Jupiter-Saturn-Pluto event all coming together, holding hands in the sky in the sign of Capricorn. Last time this happened was around 1285. Okay, so, roughly speaking, about 700 plus years ago, 750. And then the time before that it happened was in 1900 BC. Okay, so this isn't just a couple, decade events, click, click, click. I mean, these are big wheels, click, click. That's why all the astrologers knew this year was going to be monumental. They knew it was going to be epochal, And of course, we reflect, the moon reflecting the light of the sun at the end of this year, reflect on this year. And of course, for many of us, you're like, I don't want to reflect on this year. It's over. It's done. Let's move on to 2021. Greener pastures. Let's think ahead. And I totally respect that. I'm kind of in the same camp. But it's important to recognize as we reflect briefly here, okay, with detached observation, what was the significance of this year? With this style of astrology, we're always trying to contemplate, okay, what's the evolutionary intention here? The philosophy baked into this approach of astrology is that ultimately we're here to learn, grow, and evolve. What the heck were we learning this year other than life sucks, Sounds pretty cynical, but, of course, it's easy to be cynical after this year. So even if the astrological weather, so to speak, that we're experiencing collectively, even if it's auspicious and supportive and uplifting and nothing but sunshine, cuddle bears, and unicorn farts, or if it's more weighty, heavy, oppressive, really are rubbing our noses in the dirt, which 2020 is more in that camp, but either way, everything represents an evolutionary opportunity. And what was the purpose in this meaningful universe, where everything has a purpose and a reason for experiencing our noses in the dirt? Well, the year of Saturn, the great work of wisening up. Saturn derives from the word wizard, okay? And wizard derives from the word wizened. When we start getting credibility lines on our face and we start to look more wizened. So the evolutionary opportunity for us in 2020 was to basically grow up. And of course, becoming wiser, growing up, what usually coincides with that is growing pains. It's been the year of growing pains. We've been becoming more mature. And I imagine the aliens out there looking, observing humanity probably view us as very much in our infancy stage, technologically, certainly, but also maybe just emotionally and spiritually. We're kind of toddlers from their perspective because they're so evolved. I mean, I don't know how evolved they are. I've never met one, but I'm just imagining here in my little fantasy, kind of looking at us as concerned parents, And here we are going through these growing pains. And just riffing on the aliens a little bit more, they didn't start popping into our field of awareness till we started dropping bombs, on Japan, nuclear weapons that kind of got their attention. It's like, oh, toddlers with nuclear warfare? That's a little dangerous. And again, in this interconnected universe, what we're doing here has an effect on other beings as well. So then they started paying really close attention and also popping it out of their dimension into ours and making themselves visible, letting us know that they're there. Okay. So here we are, growing up. Now we take that idea of maturation, and we can even, the evolutionary intention collectively, we even take it another layer deeper. It's like, why? Why was it important for us to grow up? Why was it important for us to recognize the insanity of our current system? Seeing all the chinks in the armor so vividly, almost like we're watching some dark comedy. Why was this important? Well, because we need to change. We needed to mature to get ready for what's coming next. And it's been heavy, weighty, and oppressive. Now, for years now, I've been saying, way before I was into astrology, this was sort of just like an inner intuition, I guess you could say. I've always been optimistic and positive for a better future for humanity. But what I've always said is, it's going to get worse before it gets better. The old has to give way to make way for the new. Things need to come to an end, famously, before there's a new beginning. So it's going to get worse before it gets better. 2020 was the worst. 2021 has its own set of complications. That we do have the Saturn's not done with us yet, by the way. It's going to be entering the other sign that rules Aquarius, but it won't be aided and abetted by all these other planets. We will be headed into a Saturn-Uranus square throughout 2021 and into 2022. That has its own set of complications, but it's not quite as tense. It doesn't have all these other events coinciding with it, although it will have its own set of challenges. But we are experiencing this great awakening, wisening up, and we will start, I believe, demanding a better future for us, demanding more freedom. And this is going to be the major theme I'll be talking about throughout 2021. But in order to prepare for that, we needed to become wiser in 2020. So that, in my opinion, that's the evolutionary purpose. So here we are, 2020, this year that really felt like the walls were closing in on us. That's the imagery that comes to mind. And if we have too much Saturn, too much Capricorn in our life, especially the heavier side of it, which can manifest emotionally as a lot of depression, a lot of loneliness, despair, hopelessness, which of course the events of this year has provided a lot of that for people in the globe. Too much of that, the heart can start to check out. This is too painful to feel. Tears that people are afraid to cry. We became kind of braced for one damn thing after another. This stoic acceptance of this crappy hand that we're dealt. This is all shadow side Capricorn stuff, okay? Which of course we want to avoid the shadow side, but we're globally, a lot of people are feeling these emotions. So what's the antidote? As we reach this end point of the year, as we're reflecting on the events of the past and just seeing them plainly for what they are, recognizing the evolutionary intention, recognizing that life here on planet Earth is rough, We didn't come down here as souls to have this easy, fluffy life. We came here to learn and grow. I always honor the bravery of all of us souls electing to come to planet Earth, the school of hard knocks, okay? And if we have too much of that, what we experienced this year, the heart begins to harden. It begins to calcify. We apply the dark side of any earth sign as we have too much of the shadowy representation of it. It does start to weigh very heavy on our hearts. Now, what's the remedy? What's the antidote? Enter Moon in Cancer as we reflect on the year. The most sensitive of all the signs of the zodiac, emotionally sensitive. So emotions running high now. Probably a lot of excitement for this year almost being over. That's part of it. It's also the sign linked to family dynamics, a sense of kinship, clan, home, hearth. Of course, now we are, in the holidays, wrapping up the holidays here. A lot of people are at homes with their family, so there's that theme as well. It's about connection. And emotions are running high now, okay? Especially with this other event that I didn't even mention that's been going on the last 6 months. Mars being in its own sign, Aries. Mars, the war god in the sign of the Aries, the warrior. And it's been, now it's in a square, its last square with Pluto, the planet of extremity, the god of hell, Pluto, in a hard aspect to Mars, the god of anger, of war, of competition, of aggressiveness, emotions running high, Moon in Cancer. All full moons, emotions run high. We see that, just observe human behavior during full moons. People act a little crazier. We take this idea of moon representing the word lunar. Okay, people are more lunatic during full moons. Okay, especially when it's on its own sign. So emotions are running high. What do we do with them? Well, really, and when we think about the evolutionary purpose of working with Moon in Cancer, especially now, reflecting on the year we've just experienced as part of it, but ultimately it's a sign of nurturing, whether you're nurturing yourself or nurturing other people. If I was doing a birth chart reading for somebody and they have like their Moon in Cancer, or maybe, even Sun in Cancer, they just have this healing energy radiating deep from their core. And that's part of their cosmic job description, is to just pass out Band-Aids, and a lot of those are emotional Band-Aids too. They have noble work here on this planet, which is to reduce the pain and suffering of other individuals. But sort of a prerequisite of being able to do that very well is that they also need to heal themselves. So right now, it's very important as we reflect on the year to self-nurture, to take care of ourselves so that we don't become braced for one damn thing after another. Don't allow our heart to calcify, to get to those feelings of lonely and depression. Too much of that is very damaging. So now it's time during this full moon, to manifest. It is a time of manifestation, to manifest a deeper level of healing. And it's a very sensitive side, as I was saying, so important during Cancer full moons to somewhat remove yourself from the social realm, find some safety. It's connected to the literal home, within the walls of the home. For the Northern Hemisphere, winter is here. So it's gotten really cold here in Portugal, not compared to other places on the planet, but for this wussy California boy, this is pretty cold, okay? So, throw some logs in the fire, crank up the heat, get warm, get cozy, get under the blanket, self-nurture, run yourself a nice hot bubble bath. Picture you taking really good care of yourself psychologically, emotionally, and spiritually, just getting underneath the bubbles, and just relaxing, just breathing in, breathing out, softening, getting into the heart space. Great time for journaling. That's another way we can reflect on the year. It's like, look how far I've come. Look how hard it's been. I made it. I'm living. I'm breathing still, And this was important because we needed to grow up to prepare for what's next. We also have the planet Neptune, the planet of spirituality, mysticism, meditation, and a very tight, almost near perfect square to both the nodes of the moon. And there's a lot of layers of meaning to that, which I've discussed previously. It basically comes down to leveraging meditation to find the truth within yourself, to sort out truth from deception, because there's a whole lot of deception going on right now. And the truth is within. The best way to get to the truth within is through meditation. But meditation is really key for us all now, and that's a beautiful way of healing. I mean, gosh, even this morning I was feeling a little stressed out, got a lot of stuff going on, and won't get into the details. But I was a little on edge, and I forced myself, which isn't always easy when you're stressed out, to pop a squat and just sit there for 20 minutes, throw on some binaural beats, and do a meditation. And gosh, what a difference it made. I felt like a new man just after that 20 minutes. And the key is really forcing yourself to just sit down and do it, okay? So we can find deep healing through meditation. We can also reflect through meditation, because as we get into a light or deep trance state, the ego, the gatekeeper of the subconscious mind, steps out of the way. Okay? And we're able to leverage the language of the subconscious, which is basically imagery and visualization in your mind, to have very powerful effects. So getting into a meditative state, this is a beautiful sort of exercise you could do during the full moon or around it, is get into a meditative state and begin visualizing how the year went. Now, we got to be careful here because we recognize emotions are a little touchier right now, okay? So we don't want to dwell on the negativity of the events of 2020. That will only cause them to grow in power within ourselves, but even globally as well. Okay, so we want to be careful here, and this is where we can leverage the planet Uranus in a beautiful near perfect sextile to this full moon. Sextile is a 60-degree angle. It's supportive. It's uplifting, it's energizing this full moon. And Uranus represents ingeniousness. Innovation is sort of a very heady planet. The evolution of technology, all these things. So this is somehow supporting this method of reflection. And one element of Uranus you could think would be detached observation. So although emotions are running a little higher, reflecting on the year, try to come from this place almost as if you're observing it outside of yourself, which is a very spiritual perspective, recognizing we're in somewhat of an illusion. And of course, that illusion is very compelling. We all get caught up in the Maya, the illusion of it all. But on some level, this is a virtual reality we're experiencing. Why are we experiencing it? Again, to learn, grow, and evolve. So reflecting on the events of 2020 from this place of detached observation, seeing how much you grew through these experiences and honoring that, developing compassion, empathy. That's a beautiful emotion for Cancer. Feeling more empathetic about, your journey through this year, other people's journey through this year, how hard it's been, and sending out feelings of love, not only to yourself, but to other people, radiating this healing energy. That's the best way to work with this full moon. So this period of TLC, tender love and care via bubble baths, or whatever, the purpose of that is to soften this battle-hardened heart so we don't just brace for one damn thing after another, become the old grouches, It's like, we need to soften. Reflecting, honoring the purpose, the evolutionary intention of 2020. Also recognizing on some level this was a co-creative process. Everything here on planet Earth is co-creative with the superpower that is our consciousnesses. We are extensions of God. So taking some sort of responsibility and accountability, that's not to minimize how awful it was for some of us, but just recognizing we have a part to play in the grand scheme of things. 2020 needed to happen. All the wheels coming together, click, 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 creating space and more wisdom within us for something new. And this next decade is going to be a wild ride of evolution on every level. Especially technology, but really every level. And in 2021 that we're coming into, as I'll be talking about continually throughout the year, this Saturn-Uranus square is going to be about the old structures of control and rigidity, those walls closing in, which we've been feeling so strongly this year, and that friction against that, and people wanting more freedom because we've become wiser. Now we're going to demand more freedom in our lives. And the positive consequence of that, of this better future, is that we will be more interconnected, we'll have access to higher levels of technology, and the amount of evolution we're going to experience over the next 10 years, I believe, is going to be mind-blowing. So I'm very excited. It's going to get a lot better, but again, it had to get worse before it got better. So that's the core evolutionary intention now, with the goal always being to expand our consciousness.